Soon, it was the day of the mysterious Chamber of Commerce banquet. Michael's warning echoed in Olivia's mind. She would certainly need to be careful. The banquet took place at the buzzy, high-class hotel that Mark had just purchased. The vast, luxurious banquet hall was lit by a huge, sparkling crystal chandelier at its center. The business world's elite came dressed in their finest, ready to smile politely, compliment, and joke as they schemed against one another beneath the surface. All anyone could hear out loud was the tinking of glasses and measured laughter. But the sound might as well have been wolves stalking through the forest after their prey. "President DeLillo is so young." A middle-aged man named Mr. Pennyworth smiled as he clapped his hands on Mark's shoulders. "He is dragging us all into the future. We love it." Mark smiled back. "Oh, you must be joking. I'm only accomplishing anything with the help of my very experienced advisors." Another middle-aged man, Mr. Lee, patted his belly sadly. "What are you talking about? We're all just useless old geezers now. This world is the domain of young people." He rolled his eyes. "Though not all the young people are interested in it, apparently. If only that lazy son of mine were half as talented as you, DeLillo." Mark laughed. "Oh, Mr. Lee, come on now. I heard that your son won another big prize a couple of days ago. Didn't he receive the top honor a student can win?" Mr. Lee grumbled. "Well, that's certainly not translating into a paycheck. He could be running my company someday soon, and he wants to be a scientist for Pete's sake. I don't know what he's thinking." Mark shook his head good-naturedly. "Joining the research industry can help a lot of people. It's nothing to be ashamed of." "I don't know." Mr. Lee glumly took a swig of his cocktail. "I don't know what he's trying to prove, though it's better than what happened to old Dreyer." Mr. Pennyworth nodded solemnly. "Yes, his son Jeff joining someone else's company as a vice president. I still can't believe it. It's really—" Mark interjected aghast. "Did that really happen? I didn't hear that Jeff did that. I always heard the eldest son of the Dreyer family was a legend who could do anything he wanted. He didn't return to his father's company?" "No." Mr. Lee shook his head. "Jeff Dreyer is now the vice president of the park company." "Oh." Mark's eyes flashed, the wheels in his head turning. "I see." "That's right." Mr. Lee smiled. "Honestly, we've been laughing about it since it happened. How embarrassing for his father." "I heard." Mr. Pennyworth was about to speak when he saw Mr. Lee's eyes widen, looking off over Pennyworth's shoulder. Jeff Dreyer's father, Howard Dreyer, was looking over. Mark turned to look and met Howard's gaze, raising the glass of wine in his hand. Howard nodded lightly and raised his own glass, then turned back to his conversation. "If you'll all excuse me." Mark nodded to everyone and walked toward the restrooms. He felt he was doing an excellent job playing the part of the suave, humble young genius. Mr. Lee watched Mark walk off. "This President DeLillo is really not bad. He's young, but he's quite capable." "That's right." Pennyworth nodded in agreement. "And honestly, I love what he has done with this hotel." Mr. Lee looked around, appreciating the fine details of the place. If every move Mark makes can compare to the show he's putting on tonight, we might actually be able to compete with the park company after all. The men around them murmured in assent. Everyone was still raptly interested in the upcoming business war. Pennyworth looked thoughtful. "Though we think it's a fight between these two impossibly young leaders, it's clear that Olivia Johnson wants to revive Andrew Park. Sure, she had to change the company name for the sake of the stock price, but we all know there were other motives at play." Mr. Lee nodded. "And Mark seems like he'd be a formidable opponent for either of them. He has spent so much around New York already to revive the Roses. I can't see him stopping anytime soon." Everyone at the banquet ate, drank, and compared observations about the upcoming war like sports spectators. They enjoyed every moment of it. As Mark walked into the restroom, the smile on his face instantly disappeared. He looked at his face in the mirror with disdain. These old dinosaurs really do seem sick of being alive, he thought to himself. They don't think about anything serious and just love to gossip about other people's business. They deserve to remain the little rats that they are for the rest of their lives. Mark wrinkled his nose in disgust and brushed off his shoulders where Pennyworth had clapped his hands. This suit is expensive, Mark thought regretfully. I can't believe he slapped his grubby paws on there. Mark left the bathroom and walked down a back corridor that was deserted. He opened a window and lit a cigarette, puffing on it hungrily. He reflected on the high ceilings and the street below. This is my hotel. It's Mark DeLillo's hotel, he thought. There were a total of 7 floors, which wasn't the tallest building by any means. But each floor was more luxurious than the last. He planned for the penthouse suites to be legendary. The food and drinks were sumptuous and the prices were marked way up, even for New York standards, to keep only the richest patrons coming back. He had poached chefs from various places around the city, offering the highest salaries. However, there was a more attainably priced bar on the first floor so that people who couldn't afford to stay there could still come and marvel at it. Mark shook his head, proud of what he had built. How could Olivia compare? How could the park company accomplish anything in the same league? The hotel would have its grand opening for business the next day. But that night was for Mark's banquet for the New York City Chamber of Commerce. It was essentially just a big advertisement for his hotel and his company. After tonight, he knew the reputation of this hotel would spread like wildfire across the upper crust of New York. He already expected the following feeding frenzy. And of course, once this hotel was wildly successful, he would open up another in a few months. He would keep creating successful hotel after successful hotel because he needed the Rose Company's reputation in New York to surpass what the Johnson Company used to be and what the Park Company's reputation currently was. He needed that because Mark's influence in the city needed to also surpass Olivia's. Mark noticed a luxury car parked outside the hotel and narrowed his eyes. 3 people emerged from it, and even from a distance, he thought that he could tell the person in the middle was the person he wanted to see the most that night, Olivia. The corners of Mark's mouth tugged up in a sly smile. The 2 people beside Olivia were a man he did not know, and Olivia's enchanting, trusted assistant Violet. Thinking about how easily he could beat Olivia if he were able to take Violet, Mark was practically salivating. But a doubt nagged at the back of his mind. His mysterious superior had warned him that Olivia had purposely set up Violet as bait for Mark. Was that true? Mark did not want it to be true. He would have to be vigilant that night. He needed to observe a little more. He watched the trio enter the hotel. He pressed his cigarette butt on the side of a steel trash can and put it out, dropping it into his wine glass and leaving it on the windowsill. He put his hands in his pockets and strode down the corridor with a smile. Tonight I will let Olivia see the strength of my financial resources, he thought to himself. He pictured the surprise expression Olivia would have on her face and almost moaned to himself in pleasure. Although she was dangerous, cunning, and arrogant, she was able to turn the Johnson family's tailspin upside down. In a short time, the Park Company had completely restored the former glory of the Johnson Company. She's not an idiot, he thought grimly. Barely, but so what? He felt confident he wasn't weaker than Olivia, especially backed by the strategies of the mysterious man. He would crush the Park Company under his feet and completely flatten Olivia. I swear to myself I will, he thought. Instead of heading to the banquet hall, he walked to the hallway outside it. He leaned against the wall beside a large potted tree. He was hidden from Olivia and her 2 companions as they exited the elevator and walked toward the banquet hall. A woman in charge of welcoming guests approached them and smiled politely. Hello and welcome. May I see your invitation? Violet took an envelope out of her purse. Here you go. The woman opened the envelope and inspected the invitation. I am so sorry, there is a problem. Mark was delighted as Olivia's face fell in shock. A problem? What do you mean a problem? Olivia asked. She raised her eyebrows in surprise. The invitation didn't say anywhere that we were only allowed one guest. I'm just finding it out now that I've arrived. Olivia knew that there were some occasions and places that limited the number of guests you could bring. But in elite circles such as this, a +1 rule was unheard of. The invitation didn't say anything about this rule. Violet confirmed and frowned at the host. I'm so very sorry, but it is the rule for tonight. The host apologized profusely. I wish I could make an exception, but there's nothing I can do. Well, what should we do? Violet asked Olivia and glanced at Jeff. She had not planned for a scenario where only one of them could accompany Olivia. I know this sounds self-interested, but I think I should go, Jeff said to Violet. I don't need Violet meeting Mark DeLillo in there. He thought to himself, that's exactly what will happen if she goes. Mark has already made offers to Violet. Even if she wasn't convinced the first time, accepting Mark's business card is a sure sign that she's even a little more open to the idea than before. Olivia trusts Violet so much. As Olivia's mentor and friend, I have to do whatever I can to protect her interests. If that means keeping Violet out of this event, so be it. You think it should be you? Violet balked at Jeff's suggestion. What if I think it should be me who goes? Violet was hell-bent on protecting Olivia at all times, and she wasn't going to let Jeff talk her out of it. Besides, we're on Mark DeLillo's turf right now. This is exactly the time that Olivia needs my protection. Mark DeLillo eyed Violet quietly from off to the side behind a large potted tree. His eyes narrowed slightly as he watched her argue with Jeff Dreyer. Violet's many years of experience and training made her sense something was not right. Someone is watching us, but who? She turned to Olivia, serious. Chairman, Violet said as she looked into Olivia's eyes with an expression that signaled she sensed trouble. Olivia is very good at understanding what I'm thinking without me having to say a word. Hopefully that proves useful again right now, Violet thought. Olivia saw the look in Violet's eyes. She immediately listened closely to Violet's thoughts. Someone is watching us, she heard Violet think. Olivia's eyes darkened as soon as she understood Violet's concern. There are only two real possibilities of who might be watching us, Mark DeLillo or someone working for Mark DeLillo, Olivia deduced. She listened out quickly for the other thoughts in the room. Olivia has no idea that I'm watching, she heard a familiar voice say. It was dripping with disdain and arrogance. I would know that voice anywhere, Olivia smirked. Mark DeLillo. Olivia made a choice then, and she trusted that Violet would catch on to her plan. I agree with Jeff, Violet. Wait outside here for us, Olivia said harshly. There can only be one guest. Wait here, and we'll go back together after the banquet. Olivia tried to sound as dismissive as possible. What? Violet said, pretending to be surprised. And how long will that be for the banquet to end? I have no idea, Olivia said, disinterested. Just wait until we're done, like I said. If you insist. Violet did her best to look disappointed. Violet, I do insist. Now go and wait, Olivia said harshly. Violet obediently lowered her gaze and did not say anything else. Jeff, lead the way, please, Olivia said. Oh yes, of course, Jeff said in surprise. He was confused as to why Olivia's tone had suddenly changed so drastically. He had never known Olivia to speak that way to Violet, or anyone she respected. He felt a little stunned. I guess she must have her reasons. Jeff stifled his doubts and followed Olivia into the banquet. As they walked in, he turned back around to look at Violet. He saw her looking very downcast. Did she just wipe away a tear with her hand? Jeff thought, shocked. Even with his distrust of Violet, he felt too guilty that Violet would be treated this way, and made to just wait out there in the lobby for them the whole time. He couldn't stand it. He leaned toward Olivia and said quietly, Why don't we let her head back instead of waiting for us? It's fine, Olivia said without looking back to check on Violet. She'll be invited in soon enough. Jeff looked confused by Olivia's words. He did not understand her meaning and was about to ask more questions when his eyes landed on a familiar but very unfriendly face. After a brief awkward pause, Jeff attempted a smile and called out, "Hello, Dad." Howard Dreyer simply snorted as a response and ignored Jeff. He walked right past them as if they weren't there. "Wow, I had no idea your dad disliked you so much." Olivia turned to Jeff in surprise. She felt a pang of sympathy for her friend. "He never misses an opportunity to remind me." Jeff shrugged and laughed it off. "Is your mother here tonight? Leanne?" Olivia asked, searching the room with her eyes. "I've heard she's a social legend." "Oh, she's here all right." Jeff nodded and pointed at the woman chatting with a group of wealthy wives. "That's her there." "I see," Olivia nodded. "Your dad might be a no-go, but I can still try to meet your mom." "Are you sure you want to?" Jeff hesitated. "If you don't want to come, go ahead and mingle. I'll go talk to her on my own." Olivia walked towards Leanne Dreyer. She was about to make her introduction when someone intercepted her at the last second. "Oh my, it's Chairman Johnson," the richly dressed high society woman exclaimed. "Hi," Olivia smiled. "I have no idea who this woman is." Olivia cringed inwardly. She nodded and smiled as the woman jabbered on. More of the woman's rich friends encircled Olivia and began chatting with her all at once. Some were in awe of Olivia, ogling her outfit, and some were guarded. A few barely masked less than good intentions toward her, but Olivia deftly managed their conversational onslaught. The New York City Chamber of Commerce knows what they're doing. They managed to get Chairman Johnson to attend. One woman sneered. "Did you come with anyone? Or are you here by yourself?" Another woman cried. "Who do you hope I brought? My father or my fiancé?" Olivia teased, but not without some sincere bite. The woman who'd asked the question did not know what to say. Olivia knew these women wanted to know gossip about her father, Michael. Her family had surely been the topic of conversation among high society for some time, and this was the perfect opportunity to get the dirt straight from the source. Olivia smiled diplomatically. "Neither Michael Johnson nor Chris Jones are here with me tonight. Any other questions I can answer?" The woman giggled awkwardly, knowing they'd been put in their place. "Ladies, I hope you're not giving this poor girl too difficult of a time." An older woman's voice rose above the noise. It was Leanne Dreyer. She leaned close to Olivia's ear and whispered, "These women have too much free time on their hands and live for gossip. Don't worry about them, they can't help themselves." She winked at Olivia knowingly. "Why do you say that? We were just asking her a few questions." One of the ladies answered innocently. "All right, you've had your fun, now it's my turn. Excuse us." Leanne smiled and steered Olivia away from the circle. "Thanks for that, Mrs. Dreyer." Olivia laughed once they were far enough away. "Are you going to get in trouble with your friends for stealing me away from them?" "My dear, there is no such thing as real trouble in these circles." Leanne laughed heartedly. "I can get away with just about anything when we're all together like this at all these sorts of things. Even if we have all too much to drink and get in a big tussle or something tonight. Tomorrow, everyone will be all smiles and hello, good to see you, for the sake of the family business ties. And it'll be like nothing happened. That's how it's done around here." Olivia mostly caught Leanne's drift. She liked Jeff's mother and how confident and blunt she was. So the rumors about her reputation are true. Olivia smiled to herself. "I have to admit, my stealing wasn't entirely just to rescue from the circling sharks," Leanne said as her face became more serious. "Now it's my turn to ask you an important question of my own." Olivia wondered if she had fallen into a trap. Could Leanne Dreyer possibly want to ask that the others haven't already? Olivia held her breath as she waited for Leanne Dreyer's question. "Who did your dress?" Leanne asked, intentionally dramatic. She burst out laughing. I had you worried there for a second, didn't I? No, you won't have any hard questions from me tonight. Olivia was relieved to find out Leanne's question was so simple. She gladly told her the name of the world-famous designer. Olivia thought she saw approval in Leanne's eyes. Olivia knew that having Leanne's approval was key to being considered a real player in this particularly wealthy social scene. If Olivia wanted to make it in this town, she would need to execute every custom and practice perfectly. Any scandal could topple even the most powerful people from their respected station in an instant. Olivia remembered how Rachel Cooper used to command everyone's attention at every banquet in the past. Ever since the faked fire incident, however, Rachel was no longer welcome and never got mentioned even in casual conversation again. You see those two? Leanne pointed at two women who were talking in hushed, excited voices to each other. These two women were the same ones who swarmed Olivia with such invasive questions. They were just in a big fight with each other. Leanne whispered to Olivia. They were on the brink of tearing each other apart, but you'd never know it from watching them now, right? Olivia agreed. I never would have guessed. They seem to be getting along so well. Olivia mused. She watched how friendly they seemed to each other. Exactly, exclaimed Leanne. The two women continued laughing and joking with each other. They're acting like they get along because their families have important business meetings with each other coming up soon. Leanne sighed. A tiny part of Olivia wondered if Mrs. Dyer was herself pretending to be friendly now the same way all of the high society ladies convincingly pretended to get along when they were in public, no matter what was going on between them personally. She shrugged off the thought, but her guard remained up. It really is difficult in these circles. Leanne sighed with a faraway look in her eyes. Leanne suddenly decided to change the subject. That's enough of that topic. How is my son Jeff doing working for you? Leanne asked Olivia. He's amazing. Olivia smiled. I don't know what I would do without him. I rely on his help so much. You've taken on quite a bit of responsibility, haven't you? Leanne teased. Olivia smiled and nodded. Mrs. Dyer, I had no choice. I'm sure you read all the headlines about my family businesses situation. I simply took over because there was no one else I could trust to run things. I know it must not be easy for you. Leanne took Olivia's hand and squeezed it comfortingly. Who would have thought you'd be where you are now? You've come a long way. Leanne nodded. Olivia smiled gratefully. I appreciate that. I have no problem with Jeff working for you, but Jeff's father, on the other hand. Leanne trailed off. He is not so understanding. I got the impression that might be the case. Olivia nodded, recalling the way Jeff's father had completely ignored Jeff earlier. She had not considered it might be because he disapproved of Jeff working for her until now. Leanne laughed at Olivia's surprised expression and covered her smile with her hand. Don't you know why they're not on good terms? Leanne asked. Olivia shook her head no. You'll have to fill me in. Some time ago, our family tried to do business with Park Inc. Howard went there personally to have a meeting about it. The representative of the company he met with was Jeff. Howard was expecting to get a good deal from Jeff, but ultimately, Jeff didn't give Howard any special treatment, and even suggested they work together at the lowest price possible. Howard was so offended, and now he won't even speak to Jeff. I see. Olivia nodded. The snub earlier made perfect sense to her. Jeff had not only not stayed on in the Dyer family business, but he had cost them a good deal as well working against them for Park Inc.'s interests. She looked at Leanne, chuckling about the whole situation, and felt curious. Mrs. Dyer, you seem so happy about the situation. I have to admit I'm confused. Olivia said as she glanced at Leanne's unmistakable smile. What's not to be happy about? My son is an incredible businessman, Leanne declared and beamed with pride. Olivia understood a little better then. Mrs. Dyer cared more about Jeff's success than her own husband's ego. She is a very fascinating woman, Olivia thought to herself. I can see why she's legendary after all. I know Jeff has been working particularly grueling hours all this time, but I think he's happy. As long as he's happy, that's all I care about." Leanne sighed, satisfied. He doesn't say it out loud necessarily, but as his mother, I can just tell that he's thriving. You can tell these things intuitively. Leanne patted the back of Olivia's hand. "I'm loaning my son to you temporarily. Just remember to give him back to me in good condition. He will always be your son first and foremost. No one could possibly change that," Olivia said reassuringly. Olivia suddenly felt sorry for whoever might one day be Jeff's future wife. That woman will have to impress one of the most intimidating mother-in-laws I've ever met. Good luck to her. Out in the lobby, Violet suddenly sneezed loudly. "What is this, allergies? I never have allergies and I don't feel sick." Just then, someone handed her a tissue. Violet looked up who had offered it to her. "Mr. DeLillo." Violet calmly acknowledged Mark DeLillo. "Long time no see, Miss Violet." Mark smiled at her. He had waited until Olivia was inside the banquet before he approached. After seeing how Olivia chose Jeff over Violet as her +1, Mark was sure that Violet was not valued the way she ought to be. This was a perfect moment to swoop in. "You're kidding. We just barely saw each other a few days ago." Violet smiled. "So it was Mark who was watching us," Violet confirmed internally. Mark laughed lightly. "You know what they say, when you miss someone, time apart feels much, much longer. So to me, a few days feels like a lifetime." "You must say that to all of the assistants you meet," Violet joked, playing along to seem flattered. "There's a smile," Mark said. "You deserve to be in a good mood and having fun." Violet cast her eyes down as if she were self-conscious. "I suppose you saw what happened." "No," Mark fibbed, "but I did notice that you're still out here and seem unhappy about it. I just happened to be passing by and thought I'd check on you. I hope everything is all right." Violet sighed. Mark was a better liar than she expected. If I didn't know better, I might have actually believed him, she thought. She knew he'd seen her get let out of the party, and he was pretending not to avoid embarrassing her. He probably expects me to feel grateful and think he is such an exceptional gentleman. That only works on young, naive girls, but this isn't my first rodeo, buddy. "Why don't you come in with me?" Mark asked. "I can't. I don't have an invitation," Violet explained. "Ah, well, don't have a +1. Be my guest instead," Mark offered as if the idea had just occurred to him. He smiled widely at Violet. "You think you're so smooth," Violet thought. She fought the urge to roll her eyes. Instead, she looked up at Mark and made sure to seem extremely grateful. Pretending to be taken with Mark made Violet want to gag, but she had a job to do. This trick to pick up girls must work for him all the time, she thought, disgusted. "Thank you so much, Mr. DeLillo," she said sweetly. "That is so kind of you. I wonder how many girls have fallen for this guy's BS. Come on, keep smiling, Violet. Keep it together." Violet reminded herself she needed to play the part convincingly for the sake of Olivia's plan. He needs to think that he is winning. She blinked innocently at Mark. "You're sure if it's all right if you bring me? You would do that?" "Of course," Mark smiled, and chivalrously held out his hand to Violet. Violet reluctantly reached out to accept Mark's hand. She was inches away, but at the last second, she couldn't bear to take it. She quickly moved her hand away and pretended to be embarrassed. "Sorry, I don't want my boss, Chairman Johnson, to get the wrong idea." "Right, I completely understand. We don't want that." Mark nodded reassuringly. He felt he had the upper hand and everything was going according to his plans. "Violet is playing right into my hands," he thought. "And once I have her under my influence, she will be the perfect new weapon I have against Olivia." Mark DeLillo escorted Violet into the banquet hall. "It'll be our little secret," he whispered playfully to Violet. "Oh, he thinks he's doing me such a big favor, and that I'll be falling all over myself with gratitude," Violet thought with disgust. "He thinks he's so charming." The joke's on you, Mark. You're so predictable that Olivia's plan worked perfectly, thanks to you. Once they were securely inside the party past all the security, Mark turned to Violet. Welcome to the banquet. You may now feel free to walk about the cabin, he joked. Violet smiled gratefully despite her secret disdain for Mark. I have to go attend to the rest of the guests, but I'll see you around later. Mark nodded farewell. If she felt taken for granted by Olivia, Violet would definitely feel that I see her value now. Mark thought, I just got her into the most exclusive event in New York City. Who else has that kind of power? It won't be long before Violet wants to join Team Mark. He smiled and walked away from Violet and disappeared into the crowd. Violet politely waved goodbye at his back, but put her hand down as soon as he was gone. The smile immediately disappeared from her face. The first step of the plan is complete, she thought to herself. Now where is Olivia? She looked around at all of the people that filled the room. Many were unfamiliar faces, but there were also some people there whom Violet recognized because they were famous for their wealth. Most of the elite had shown up to attend Mark DeLillo's event, and it was fascinating to see so many big names in such a grand room all at once. They let you in just like that? That was fast, a mocking voice said behind Violet. Violet recognized the voice immediately. She rolled her eyes and turned around. What is your problem, Jeff? If I can't get in with Olivia, I'm not supposed to let anyone else help me get in instead? I wasn't going to just stand out in the lobby all night waiting for the banquet to end. I suspect you would have loved that, though. Jeff took a sip of his wine and smiled coldly. How clever and resourceful of you. Interestingly, the one you accepted help from was Mark DeLillo. Am I not allowed to accept Mark's help to get into the banquet? Violet asked. Is there some kind of company policy against that? I don't remember being aware of it. No, Jeff said and moved closer to Violet. But the company does have clear rules that prohibit employees from colluding with outside competitors to harm the company's interests. That one has big consequences, and violators will be held accountable. I wouldn't want to be the one who got caught doing something like that. What are you talking about? It sounds like you think I've done something to betray Olivia and the company. What evidence do you have that anything like that is going on? Violet asked. If you really haven't done anything wrong, then there's no reason to feel guilty. Jeff shrugged. You can't make random accusations without any evidence. Violet countered. The two of them continued to glare at each other in a silent standoff. Well, I suggest you make sure I don't find any evidence, Jeff said calmly with a hint of a threat in his voice. Even if you did somehow drum up some evidence, Olivia would have to believe it. Violet shrugged. You are something else. Jeff shook his head. I know. It's nice to hear you say it out loud, though. Violet smiled proudly, then walked past Jeff straight to Olivia. Jeff watched her walk away, stunned into silence. Olivia saw Violet walking toward her, so she quickly turned to Leanne. Mrs. Dreyer, there's someone I need to go speak to. I'm so glad I had the pleasure of meeting you tonight. Please, go ahead. Leanne waved her hand to show that she wasn't offended. Enjoy the evening, Miss Olivia. Olivia met Violet's eyes, and Violet understood to join her somewhere less crowded. They both walked to the other side of the banquet hall where fewer people might hear them. Only a few waiters floated by to offer hors d'oeuvres and drinks on trays. Olivia and Violet settled by a large window. So, how did it go? Olivia asked as she accepted a fruity drink from a passing waiter and took a sip. He took the bait, just like you guessed. Violet smiled and picked up her own fruity drink as well. Do you want me to reel him in? There's no rush, Olivia said as she glanced over at Mark from across the room. Just keep adding bait to the hook so that he takes a bigger bite. You're doing great. Violet nodded and smiled conspiratorially. Olivia must have a very good plan, she thought with respect. She finished her drink and sighed satisfied. Giving Mark a taste of his own manipulative medicine is going to be fun. Olivia turned and walked away. Violet followed, but at an inconspicuous distance. Olivia joined Jeff, who was in the middle of talking to someone. She smiled and said, "Jeff, you'll have to introduce me to your friend." "Of course, Chairman." Jeff nodded at Olivia. He used her formal title in front of other people to show his respect. "Good evening, Chairman Johnson." Jeff's acquaintance nodded and smiled at Olivia. He extended his hand in a friendly way. "I'm Nathaniel Hammer from the Hammer Corporation." "Very nice to meet you, Mr. Hammer." Olivia smiled back and shook Nathaniel's hand. She knew that the Hammer Corporation was a long-time partner of her company, even way back at the beginning of Jack Johnson's tenure. Olivia also recognized Nathaniel from seeing him many times at the Johnson family banquet. Her impression of him was that he was a kind man. From what Olivia remembered, he had a good relationship with her father. In the past, when the Johnson Company was in deep trouble, many of their business partners had canceled their contracts. But the Hammer Corporation did not, and that loyalty was not forgotten. "Your father didn't come?" Nathaniel asked casually. "No, unfortunately." Olivia shook her head. "He's very busy with work and couldn't make it. He's in the middle of developing a new project for Confluence and he just couldn't get away." "That's really a pity." Nathaniel smiled. "Ever since he left the Johnson Company, the Park Company, we haven't seen each other for a very long time. I was hoping we could run into each other and catch up a bit." "I'll let my dad know you asked about him." Olivia smiled. It might remind him not to be so caught up in work. He'll be sorry he missed his old friend. "Thank you. I have some friends I need to wave to, but lovely to meet you. Excuse me." Nathaniel smiled and nodded at Jeff and Olivia. "Of course," Olivia said, raising her drink in his direction. "We'll talk again soon." Jeff nodded. Nathaniel Hammer walked away to greet some of the other guests. "How's it going?" Olivia asked Jeff in a low voice. "Did you find any useful information?" "Unfortunately, no." Jeff shook his head. Nathaniel Hammer is an experienced businessman. He's got such a good poker face. It's not easy to get information out of him. He noticed Violet, who was subtly hovering nearby and watching him carefully. He made eye contact with her to let her know that he was aware of her. "I'm watching you too," Jeff thought. Violet scoffed at Jeff's glare. "Jeff, just calm down." Violet rolled her eyes. "Have you found anything about the real purpose behind this banquet?" Olivia asked Jeff. "Not yet." Jeff shook his head. "The New York City Chamber of Commerce has been on the decline for so long. If it wasn't for this banquet, I think most of everyone here would have forgotten about it even existing. No one has talked about it at all recently, and now, all of a sudden, it's the center of attention. Something strange is definitely going on." Olivia narrowed her eyes, and she looked around the room. "Who is the president of the New York City Chamber of Commerce?" "That would be that man right over there," Jeff said, and pointed to an ancient-looking man with white hair standing not too far away from them. "Mike Greenberg." "Wow, he must be very old." Olivia frowned slightly as she observed the way Mike Greenberg moved very slowly. "I wonder if he'll retire soon. And that would mean there's going to be a new Chamber of Commerce president in not too much time." Olivia's thought was interrupted by the loud sound of a microphone's feedback piercing the air. Olivia and everyone's attention snapped to the source of the sound. Who is about to make an announcement? Hello, testing. The MC said into the microphone a few times. They were dressed in a tuxedo and black bow tie. "There we go. Good evening, guests. The hosts want to express their gratitude to all of you for taking the time to join us at the New York City Chamber of Commerce banquet. And they would also like to say, you missed out to the other invitees that were too busy to attend." Everyone in the room clapped and laughed good-naturedly at the MC's joke. The speech continued, but suddenly there was a sound at the entrance that interrupted it. Olivia looked in the direction of the front doors and smirked. Some familiar late arrivals had just entered. Jake and Jared Nevin walked into the large banquet hall dressed in sharp suits. Jake walked ahead of his younger brother, and Jared dutifully followed behind him. It was obvious to any onlookers that there was unharmonious tension between the two brothers. If only the Nevin brothers had entered the party just then, it probably not would have caused such a commotion. But the guests who entered right behind them caught everyone's attention. Olivia recognized them as members of the Cooper family. They had kept a low profile in New York City for a long time. So it was a big deal for them to appear at the New York City Chamber of Commerce banquet, and with such a conspicuous entrance. The one leading the Cooper party was the patriarch of the family, Kenneth Cooper. His two sons, Brett and Ryan Cooper, and his daughter-in-law followed behind him. That's Rachel Cooper's father, Olivia thought to herself as she watched Kenneth. Compared to the last time Olivia had visited the Coopers, their reputations had dived. But the way they carried themselves in front of the crowd at the banquet looked as if they were the top family in town. "Isn't each guest only allowed a +1?" Violet whispered. She did not know who these people were or anything about the Cooper family, but she did know their guest numbers did not add up. "I think we both know that rule was just for me," Olivia answered. She looked away from them to casually take a sip of her drink. "Why is the Cooper family so late?" Someone in the crowd mumbled. "That was bold of them to show up here. Don't they know everyone will just be whispering about how far they've fallen?" Another guest wondered. Jeff Dreyer was puzzled to see the Cooper family attend the banquet as well. Why would they come out tonight? He wondered quietly to Olivia. "I can understand their strategy." Olivia smirked back at him. "Everyone is saying I'm going to shake up New York City and consolidate power. The Cooper family won't want to lose their spot among the 4 big families, so they need to remind everyone they're still here." "I see," Jeff nodded. He found Olivia's reasoning sound. The whispered gossip that swirled around the room grew louder. Olivia felt amused by the way whispering often backfired like that. When everyone whispers, they start whispering louder to still be heard over everyone else. And then before you know it, everyone's talking very audibly anyway, and you can hear everything. Olivia chuckled to herself. She continued listening to the gossip fly around the room. "The Coopers just aren't very attractive, are they? No one would dare say that to their faces, of course, but we all know it," someone said. "It's just the Chamber of Commerce banquet, but the head of the family, Kenneth, personally made an appearance. They must really need this." Another guest sneered. The Cooper family's faces faltered when they heard these comments. They said nothing, but Kenneth Cooper's face became pale, and the other family members looked embarrassed. Brett Cooper maintained his composure, but in his mind, he quietly resented his father for having them make a spectacle of themselves. "I told him he did not need to come, that it would make us all look desperate, but he insisted. I hope he's happy. If he's looking for trouble, that is what he's going to get. Doesn't he have any shame?" The MC struggled to get the party back on track. He cleared his throat and tried again. Welcome, everyone. This time around, the New York City Chamber of Commerce banquet is being put on by Mr. Mark DeLillo of the Rose Company," he announced and gestured in Mark's direction. Mark smiled and nodded at the crowd's applause. "Now I'm going to invite the president of the New York City Chamber of Commerce, Mike Greenberg, to the stage." The MC continued. "Everyone give a big hand for Mr. Greenberg." The crowd applauded Mike Greenberg as he made his way to the stage. He slowly walked onto the stage and looked out at the crowd. His old age was very apparent. He became emotional looking at the full room of attendees who had shown up that night. He reflected on how the New York City Chamber of Commerce had once been glorious, but had suffered greatly after the Wall Street crash. It was not uncommon to see social upheaval, economic downturn, and drastic changes to the business world. But Mike Greenberg wished he could do more to help the current situation. He was very moved to see so much support there at the banquet that night. "I am so grateful to you all for coming. Our New York City Chamber of Commerce has been a great institution for hundreds of years. When I became the chairman, the Chamber of Commerce was already like an old man who had weathered many hardships. We've been through a lot." The guests listened attentively to Mr. Greenberg's speech. At the same time, they were quietly guessing the real purpose of the banquet. It was odd that the banquet just happened to be held the day before the Rose Company was set to open, and the sponsor was Mark DeLillo from the Rose Company. It was not a coincidence. "Way back in the day," Mike Greenberg croaked in his elderly voice, "there were just farmers and businessmen. The original intention of the New York City Chamber of Commerce was to unite all the merchants in New York City. As time has gone on and the business has boomed, the New York City Chamber of Commerce has arguably become less and less relevant." Mike Greenberg's voice shook with emotion as he continued. "Despite that, the New York City Chamber of Commerce continues to represent diligence, honesty, and self-respect. Those things seem harder and harder to come by nowadays, don't they?" There was an awkward silence in the audience. Mike Greenberg did not seem to notice the silence and carried on. "It's time for the New York City Chamber of Commerce to have some fresh blood," he sighed. "The purpose of this banquet being held today is to gather everyone together to appoint a new president of the New York City Chamber of Commerce. I've held this title for a very long time, and it's time for me to retire." The entire room gasped in surprise. Everyone had wondered all night about the true purpose of the banquet, but the appointment of a new president had not entered their minds as a possibility. Who would be the new appointee? They wondered. Everyone's attention naturally turned to Olivia Johnson and Mark DeLillo. Olivia's ever-increasing power and influence throughout New York City business made her an obvious contender. The only problem was that she was very young, and that counted against her. On the other hand, Mark was the official sponsor of the New York City Chamber of Commerce banquet. His financial resources and potential were clearly on display at this event, as well as what he had done with the venue. He was also considered among many to be the most promising rising star that could go toe-to-toe with Olivia Johnson. Suddenly, Kenneth Cooper's attendance at the banquet made a lot more sense. Perhaps he hoped to be selected president in order to better position the Cooper family. He wasn't as young as he used to be, but Kenneth Cooper was still a shrewd businessman, and he had the experience that the new youngsters did not necessarily have. The main flaw for Kenneth Cooper was his family's tattered reputation, and it was difficult to see him overcoming that fact. They had infidelity scandals within the family to deal with, and his daughter was still in jail for committing arson in a poorly thought-out effort to gain sympathy from the public amid her and Michael Johnson's divorce. The pieces were all set on the chessboard. Would Olivia Johnson, Mark DeLillo, or perhaps the dark horse Kenneth Cooper, become appointed the new president of the New York City Chamber of Commerce? Olivia's scalp prickled. She was right. A plan was in motion, and a new president of the New York Chamber of Commerce would be announced at this event. She thought as she looked around. Everyone acts like this is important and prestigious, but it's not. As the saying goes, the real president of the Chamber of Commerce is New York City itself. The figurehead doesn't matter. She had some memory of the Chamber's president from her past life. She knew that Jack and Bruno Johnson were responsible for a huge financial crisis after they ran their business into the ground, but they successfully cast all the blame onto her dad, Michael. But it wasn't just Michael who lost in the fallout. Since Jack and Bruno had caused such a catastrophe using loopholes in finance law, the president of the chamber had been a major scapegoat for a financial collapse that was still yet to come in this life. Olivia reflected on all of the loss. So many people lost their livelihood and their life savings. It was only a matter of time before the same thing happened. Olivia thought helplessly about what poor fool would be named the Chamber of Commerce president, a useless figurehead who'd be used as a punching bag once things got bad. She looked out over the excited crowd who seemed genuinely titillated by the news that a new president was probably about to be named. Wow, she thought to herself with something almost like pity. Are all of these powerful upper-crust people stupid? Mike Greenberg raised his hands from his podium, signaling for the chatter to die down. As the current president of the New York City Chamber of Commerce, I will be stepping down from that honor soon. The new president, who is appointed by myself, and all of the directors of the chamber. Olivia rolled her eyes at the rapt crowd around her. But who will it be? She wondered. This person who has been a leading light in our industry, who has a unique understanding of commerce and how to bring it into the future. Olivia noticed a few glances towards her. No, she thought, they could mean anyone. Mike held his arms out toward her. We appoint the president of the park company, Olivia Johnson. Olivia was stunned. She blinked. She knew everyone was looking at her at that moment. She thought it was okay for them to see her surprise, but she forced herself to smile, as though it truly were an honor rather than a career death sentence. She noticed that the faces around her wore different expressions. Some smiled, some looked envious. A couple looked outright disgusted. She did not wish to know what they thought. Mike addressed the crowd. Now, if there are any objections to this decision, anyone technically does have the option to propose an alternate. But this is more of a formality. Surely you feel, as I do, that we will be in capable hands. He turned back to her. President Johnson, please come up and speak. At that moment, Olivia thought she would rather get down on the floor and shine Mark DeLillo's shoes than give an acceptance speech for this nomination. She did not see a graceful way out of taking the stage in the split second she had to decide, so she smiled and dutifully walked up to join Mike. Scattered applause from about half the room resounded as she walked up beside him. She tried to formulate a plan to say something kind at the moment that would still reserve the option to reject it. She began, but a voice from the crowd called out, Isn't President Johnson too young for this position? Everyone turned in unison to the source of the voice, Jake Nevin. Olivia's eyes lit up. This was good, since somebody else said it first. Jake explained himself to the shocked crowd. I appreciate that President Greenberg wants some fresh blood in the chamber, but I'll just say it. We're all thinking about it. She's too young. Olivia spoke into the microphone. Mr. Jake Nevin is absolutely right. The crowd broke out into confused chatter. Nobody had expected this turn of events, including Jake, who was taken aback. He expected a fight. He couldn't believe she didn't want this prestigious position that commanded the whole of the finance industry. If he were named president, he reasoned, his family's future in New York would be secure, and he would be good at it. And he was fresh blood, too. If Olivia can do it, I definitely can, he thought angrily to himself. Mike Greenberg looked between Olivia and Jake, as lost as anyone. Now President Johnson is very suitable for this position. All of the directors of the Chamber of Commerce voted and chose her as the best candidate. If you have another nomination, we can accept it, but her age should not be the reason that you object. Mr. Greenberg, Olivia spoke authoritative. If it is possible, I would like to nominate Jake Nevin. Her words made the whole crowd look at Jake in unison, more confused than before. Olivia explained. The Nevin family is one of the 4 biggest families in New York City. His background is prestigious. His age is similar to mine, and he certainly has that air of talent about him. Olivia could not think of anything worthy of praise about Jake Nevin. In many ways, Jake is even more qualified than I am. Jake was stunned speechless, as was Mike Greenberg. Moreover, Olivia continued, between my duties as president of the park company, finishing high school and applying to college, I do not believe I could give this position the attention it deserves. She looked at Mike, who seemed to be taking this information in. I truly thank you, President Greenberg, and the rest of the directors of the chamber, for your generosity and your faith in me. I do have the desire to fill this position, but now is not the time. This, Mike began. I cannot say that I expected this. I want to see the chamber restored to its former glory, Olivia said eagerly, but that will not happen under me. I thank you for your compliments and for everything you said. I apologize for the fact that I must respectfully decline. Olivia gave a nod to Mike and walked back down into the crowd as the room stayed completely silent. However, the person who was most confused of all remained Jake Nevin. Mike cleared his throat and adjusted his tuxedo jacket and reading glasses. Well, the candidate currently before us is Jake Nevin. Does anyone present recommend a candidate who they feel would be better than Mr. Nevin? Mike was trying to hide it, but Olivia could tell that he did not possess the most flattering impression of Jake. So he's smarter than I would have thought, Olivia thought to herself with a smile. But she looked around at the crowd to see how they responded to Greenberg's question. She wouldn't be in the clear until another president was named. Jake raised his chin and looked around at the crowd, daring them to speak up. The Nevin family was too powerful for anyone to openly challenge him. Mike sighed and blinked. If there are no objections, then on behalf of myself and the directors of the Chamber of Commerce, I am delighted, he said flatly, to name Jake Nevin the new president of the New York City Chamber of Commerce. Anyone on good terms with the Nevin family applauded and raised their glasses as people clapped Jake on the back and called compliments out to him. Jake took the stage and spoke about his ambitions for the chamber, proud and cocky, as Mike Greenberg tried to hide his displeasure to the side. From the back of the banquet hall, Jared watched all of this, shaking his head. This idiot, he thought to himself as he raised his glass and smiled whenever anyone looked his way. How could he take this position? He asked for it too. Look at him smiling up there. He doesn't have a clue how furious grandfather will be tonight. But he wasn't the only one glumly keeping to himself at the edge of the festivities. The Cooper family was clustered in a corner. Nobody was eager to chat with them. When they tried to reach out to anyone nearby, people would hurry away. They were being actively avoided. The Coopers felt completely humiliated. They endured it for as long as they could, about an hour, but then finally couldn't take it anymore. Let's go, Kenneth Cooper grumbled to the rest of them. He turned on his heel and left the banquet hall, his family trailing behind him. They didn't even try to put on happy faces anymore. Kenneth reflected bitterly on how these same people were so eager to try to kiss him up and curry his favor when his family was in its glory days. How did we fall so far? He thought as he left the hall. At the same time, a private jet landed at Teterboro Airport at the edges of the city. A young woman in a long dress walked down the stairs of the plane. She looked at the distant city skyline, her face filled with emotion. She entered a waiting black car. Where to, miss? The driver asked. The Cooper residence, she answered. Jared drank his wine by himself at the edge of the banquet hall, feeling depressed. My brother, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, he thought gloomily to himself. And he doesn't have one firing brain cell in his whole empty skull. Jake was surrounded by business people chatting him up, complimenting him, and refilling his drink. His face was flushed red from the alcohol and the attention, a sheen of sweat standing out on his forehead. With this new adjustment to the business power structure, everyone was trying to make new connections and solidify old ones while they mingled and schmoozed. Jared figured it was obvious at this point that Mark DeLillo had Jake wrapped around his finger. He knew the patriarch of the Nevin family was also considering working with Mark, which he was sure Jake had a hand in. But Jared knew that Jake being president of the Chamber of Commerce would mean that Mark could control both. He could pull the strings as he wished, and then, when anything went wrong, Mark would get none of the blame. Jake would be the public scapegoat. Jared shook his head. The Nevin family is in danger now. We'll be implicated in literally any downturn in business, he thought to himself. How did Jake not see that risk? Even after seeing Olivia turn the position down, why didn't that make him hesitate? Jared rolled his eyes at how obvious it all was, and his brother still didn't see it. Olivia turned down the position because she was too busy. If it's something she wanted, Jared thought angrily, it obviously wouldn't matter that she's busy. God, he's so stupid. Jake raised his chin and poured the rest of his glass of wine down his throat. Am I really going to have to assist Jake for the rest of my life? Do I have to follow the decisions this donut makes? The thought made Jared feel like the future was almost too bleak to stand. What a miserable life it looked like it would be from where he was standing. It was terrifying. He'd just spent decades watching his brother ruin everything in slow motion. The new president's little brother. Jared looked up to see Mark DeLillo approach him with 2 wine glasses in his hand. Why are you drinking alone? He held out the glass to Jared. Jared hesitated, then accepted it. Mark DeLillo, I look forward to your company officially launching tomorrow. You obviously know what you're doing here. Congratulations in advance on your success. And thank you to Jake's number 2. Mark noticed with satisfaction that Jared winced as he said that. Congratulations to the Nevin family for having their man leading the Chamber of Commerce. Jared smiled stiffly. Thank you so much, he said as he took another drink. If you have any other thoughts on the news, I hope you know you can speak candidly with me. Mark wielded. I've always heard that you are very talented. The whole city knows it. In fact, you've also been studying abroad since you were young and just came back recently. Mark studied Jared's face as he smiled and nodded in response. Thank you. Mark swirled his glass, watching the wine. I wonder if you might be interested in coming to the Rose Company to show off your skills. Jared was surprised that Mark was bold enough to say this. He felt a little disgusted and immediately thought that Mark's control over the Nevin family must be more advanced than he realized. What does this mean? Jared wondered to himself. Is he taking over my family? He threatened my brother and now thinks he can lure me away? I hope you don't misunderstand me, Mark continued, unnerved at Jared's silence. I just returned to New York City myself. My company is new and it's important for us to put in all of the best talent. If you're interested, I would be prepared to offer you vice president and 10% equity in the business. Jared blinked, forcing himself to smile. Thank you, Mr. DeLillo, for thinking so highly of me, but Mark interrupted. I have always felt that Jake's younger brother was stronger than him in every aspect. Jared could only stare at Mark. He was sick of suffering silently at Jake's side, and it felt like being washed in cool relief to have someone acknowledge him this way. I feel for you, Mark continued. I value talent and really hate to see it go to waste. President DeLillo, please don't say any more. Jake interrupted him. I am not talented. I don't know how you got that impression of me, but I'm not what you think. I enjoy assisting my brother. He's impulsive, but he's still young. I really thank you for your compliments, but if that's it, I do see a friend I need to say hi to. Mark's face twisted into something ugly. Please, do, he said with a nod. As Jared walked farther and farther away from him, Mark's knuckles turned white against his wine glass. If you won't join me, you are against me, he thought to himself, gritting his teeth. Mark thought angrily about how Olivia somehow poached the Dreyer family's son Jeff for her vice president. But he couldn't even poach Jared Nevin. Jared had no power in his family, but Jeff had been a truly staggering get. What right does Jared have to say no to me? Mark raged internally. I offered him 10% of my entire company. He should be kissing my shoes. This Jared Nevin really has no clue what's good for him. Mark downed the rest of his wine in one gulp, then looked in Olivia's direction with a gloomy expression. I will never be inferior to a little termite like her, he thought. I have money, power, influence. I will have everything I want. I will. From across the banquet hall, Olivia had noticed Mark approach Jared and opened her mind to their thoughts. With so many people chatting and mingling around her, it was difficult to tune them out and just focus on Mark and Jared. She subtly moved slightly closer, concentrating, pretending to be very moved by the taste of her drink. When she finally heard what happened, that Mark offered Jared 10% of his company and Jared turned him down, Olivia broke into a smile. She loved witnessing Mark getting humiliated this way. She also knew that after a lifetime of brainwashing about the importance of family and the responsibility of being in such a powerful one, it was silly for Mark to think that Jared would openly defy his older brother. Olivia knew that Jared was ambitious, but it was still a huge leap for him to assist an outsider the way he assisted his brother. Olivia shook her head, marveling at Mark's stupidity. He didn't even think for 2 seconds about Jared's personality, but he wanted to throw out some bait just like that. Olivia lightly touched Jeff's arm beside her. Jeff, go and chat with Jared Nevin. Jeff nodded, zeroing in on Jared. Will do. Since it was known in their social circles that the Nevins were particularly strict and old-fashioned, pretty much everyone was ignoring Jared. He had no power in his family. The one to talk to, they thought, was his older brother. Jeff approached Jared as he walked alone. What are you thinking about? Jeff asked. Jared was dumbfounded to see him. Jeff Dryer, he smiled. I was hoping to talk to you, but you did seem busy, so I didn't want to interrupt. What did you want to talk about? Jeff asked, his expression curious. It's a big night for your family. I figured you'd be enjoying it. Jared rolled his eyes. Stop making fun of me. Jared sighed. He narrowed his eyes thoughtfully at Jeff. It is a big night for my family and such an honor to be appointed to this position. Why didn't Chairman Johnson accept it? She is still a student, Jeff replied smoothly. She's a quirky person with her own unique point of view anyway. You don't have to take her decision to mean anything about what's right for your brother. And no matter what, at least tonight is a good thing. Jake looks so happy. Jeff gestured at Jake, still surrounded by a throng of attentive people, who was laughing so hard that wine came out of his nose. Someone handed Jake a napkin and he wiped off his face, still laughing hard. Jared sighed, closing his eyes in embarrassment at his brother. All of a sudden, he had mixed feelings in his heart where he had felt so resolute before. Jared was still just thinking these thoughts to himself, but that was a new step for him. He'd been so dutiful, and Jake was such a fool. Maybe it was time for him to forge his own path in life. Jared watched from his secluded corner as Jake, now officially the president of the Chamber of Commerce, weaved through the banquet hall. His brother was all smiles, basking in the glory of his newfound status. The clinking of glasses and bursts of laughter that followed him echoed like a mockery in Jared's ears. He doesn't deserve this, Jared brooded internally. He's just a puppet, a smiling fool on a stage he doesn't even understand, and they all just eat it up. The sight of Jake's gleeful ignorance was like a thorn in Jared's side, a constant reminder of the underserved fortunes that often fell into the laps of the least deserving. Enough. I can't keep poisoning my night with thoughts of him, Jared resolved, trying to force his gaze away from Jake's jubilant figure. Just have a good night, Jared. Forget about him. As Jared attempted to divert his attention, Jeff Dryer suddenly appeared beside him, plucking the glass of wine from his hand with a swift, playful gesture. You're too young to be nursing that drink, Jeff chided, an amused smirk dancing on his lips. Jared rolled his eyes, irritation flickering across his face. Oh, please, I've been drinking longer than I can remember, he retorted, his annoyance with the night seeping into his words. Age isn't just a number, you know. I've seen toddlers with better alcohol tolerance than some adults, Jared continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. And what about Olivia? She's my age, and she's parading around here with a glass in her hand. Jeff's smile held a hint of knowing as he replied, At this event, in front of these people, Olivia is sipping on juice. Jared scoffed, his disdain for the evening's pretenses growing. Well, I don't care what these people think. They're all just playing their little games, dancing around the truth. Seems like you're quite the bitter brother of the Nevin family, Jeff remarked, his tone light but probing. Jared's response was immediate, laced with a mix of pride and frustration. I'm not bitter. I just know I'm smarter, stronger, and more deserving than he is. Jeff nodded, an understanding look in his eyes. I agree with you, Jared. You are smarter and more deserving than your brother. You forgot to say stronger, Jared pointed out half-jokingly. Jeff laughed, the sound genuine and warm. Stronger, too, of course. His demeanor shifted lightly, becoming more serious as he tentatively tested the waters. You know, Jared, her skills, brains, and brawn would be highly respected and valued if you were to work with Olivia. Jared's expression hardened, suddenly on guard. He could see where this conversation was heading. Jeff leaned in, his voice earnest. Think about it. Your brother, with all due respect, is likely to run the Nevin family into the ground. Working with Olivia could give you the chance to be on top, to use your talents. Why should I trust Olivia? Jared asked, skeptical. Because you trust me, don't you? Jeff replied, and I trust Olivia. Jared shook his head. Olivia's too smart, and that makes her untrustworthy in my eyes. Jeff countered passionately. That's exactly why she is trustworthy. She won't act out of emotion or ego, only in the best interest of business. Her intelligence is a guarantee that she'll make sound decisions. He continued, his voice filled with conviction. Olivia's intelligence should be a safety net for you. You don't have to worry about her making dumb decisions or jeopardizing anything. She's too analytical and too calculated to be a danger to the business. With her, you can be sure that every move is well thought out, every strategy meticulously planned. It's the perfect opportunity for someone like you, Jared, who deserves more than just being in the shadow of his brother. Jared's voice took on a sharper edge, his words flowing with a mix of caution and insight. You're not seeing the whole picture, Jeff. Olivia's smarts are not just an asset, they're a potential threat. She could be playing me, planning to stab me in the back at any moment. That kind of intelligence, it's a double-edged sword. He leaned forward, his expression intense. Think about it. If she operates only for her own interests, where does that leave me? Olivia's lack of emotion and her absence of ego doesn't make her trustworthy. It makes her heartless. It means she won't hesitate to screw over anyone to get what she wants, and that includes me. Jared's voice grew more animated as he continued. Working for a clown like my brother, it's predictable. I can control him and manipulate his moves, but Olivia, her intelligence makes her unpredictable and uncontrollable. I'll be constantly looking over my shoulder, worried about her next move. That's not a partnership. It's a ticking time bomb. Jeff listened intently, then countered with equal fervor. But consider this, Jared. If Olivia can trust you, truly trust you, she'll put all her cards on the table. You won't need to worry about backstabbing or hidden agendas. You'd be partners, allies with a common goal, and that goal, to take down Jake, to reshape the power dynamics that are currently skewed against you. With Olivia, you'd have a partner who's as sharp as you and who respects your abilities. You'd be working with someone who can match your wit and your intelligence, and together, you could be unstoppable. Jeff paused, letting his words sink in. It's a chance to step out of the shadows, Jared. To not just be the smarter brother, but to be recognized for it. With Olivia, you're not just a pawn in someone else's game, you're a kingmaker. Jared interrupted Jeff abruptly, his eyes narrowing. Did Olivia send you to talk to me? Jeff nodded, a hint of reluctance in his voice. Yes, she asked me to speak with you, but only out of respect for your position and abilities. Jared looked at Jeff skeptically, his mind racing with thoughts. Why would Olivia be interested in me? It's Jake who has the power now. What's in it for her to align with the brother in the shadows? Why does Olivia want to work with me? Jared asked, his tone laced with suspicion. Jeff appeared uncertain, his usual confidence faltering. Honestly, I have no idea. Olivia is the one person I can't read with my usual psychology tactics. I don't fully understand why she's so adamant about working with you. That's exactly why I can't trust her, Jared retorted sharply. She's too smart for her own good, and she's a master at keeping secrets. Jared's internal monologue continued to churn. Olivia must be an incredible poker player, always keeping her hand to herself, playing her cards close to her chest. Too close. What does she see in me? Why reach out to the brother in the background? Jeff posed a question, breaking into Jared's thoughts. If you were going against your family, who else would you want on your side besides someone who knows how to keep secrets and play their cards right? Jared paused, considering Jeff's question. Could aligning with Olivia be the smarter move? Is she the ally I need to step out of Jake's shadow to make my own mark? She's cunning, yes, but maybe that's exactly what I need right now. Someone who can navigate these treacherous waters with precision and foresight. He remained silent for a moment, the gears in his mind turning. Working with Olivia, it's risky, but it could be my chance to redefine my role, to be more than just Jake's brother. Maybe it's time to play a different game, with a partner who's as sharp and as calculated as I am. Across the room, Mark observed Jeff and Jared's interaction with a piercing gaze. Internally, he was grappling with a sense of unease. Is Olivia making a play for the Nevin family too? He wondered. But then he reassured himself, no matter, I have Jake in my palm. Whatever Olivia tries with the spare, it won't measure up to the control I have. Mark's attention shifted as he spotted Olivia and Violet conversing in a corner. With a smug smile, he made his way over to them. Olivia's annoyance was palpable the moment she saw Mark approaching. What does he want now? She thought, her disdain for his presence clear. Mark raised his glass in a toast, his eyes locked on Olivia. To Olivia and her current, albeit temporary, success with the park company. Olivia met his gaze squarely, her response sharp. Perhaps you should toast me to when you have your own successful business. Which, by my estimation, will be never. Your little joke wasn't funny, Olivia, Mark retorted, his smile fading. He continued unabashed. I'm very satisfied with how the dinner has turned out. Olivia's reply was laced with suspicion. It's odd that you, merely a sponsor, are so pleased with the dinner's outcome. It's almost as if you're the one who actually planned the whole thing. Her words trailed off, but the implication hung heavily in the air. As Olivia's words echoed through the room, a hush fell over the nearby attendees. Her implication that Mark had orchestrated the entire banquet and was more than just a sponsor caught the ears of many. The whispers began to ripple through the crowd like a wave, each individual adding their speculation. An elegantly dressed woman leaned in towards her companion, her voice barely above a whisper. Did you hear what Olivia said? Mark planning the entire banquet? That seems rather overreaching for a mere sponsor. Another attendee, a man with a keen eye, chimed into his group. It's quite suspicious, isn't it? A sponsor typically doesn't get so involved. What's Mark's real angle here? A couple standing nearby exchanged glances, their curiosity piqued. Do you think there's more to Mark than he lets on? Planning a banquet of this scale, it's not a small feat. These murmurs and whispers spread, the attendings glancing at Mark with renewed interest and speculation. Mark, feeling the weight of the room's gaze, looked around, his expression turning from smug to annoyed as he realized the impact of Olivia's words. The whispers were like needles, each one poking at his facade, challenging the image he had carefully constructed. Olivia, on the other hand, maintained her composure, her eyes locked on Mark with an unmistakable challenge. It was a gaze that she knew more than she let on, a gaze that dared him to reveal his true intentions. Mark's face flushed with indignation as he addressed Olivia. You're just trying to stir up rumors, Olivia. It's a desperate move from a desperate person. He sneered. Desperate? That's rich coming from you. Olivia retorted coolly. You're the one who's been lurking around trying to play puppet master. Mark's voice took on a harsher tone. Don't think I don't see your game. You're no better than your shady grandfather, Jack Johnson. You're just another shady businesswoman trying to climb up by dragging others down. Olivia's response was sharp and unwavering. I am nothing like Jack Johnson, but I'm also not a fool. I can recognize a snake in the grass when I see one, and right now, Mark, you're slithering all over this banquet. Mark's expression twisted with offense. Not only are you shady, Olivia, but you're also insecure. It's written all over your face. Olivia's eyes narrowed, deeply offended by the accusation. Insecure? Me? Why would I be insecure, Mark? Because you're threatened by me, Mark asserted. You see me as a sponsor, as someone climbing the ranks and it made you insecure. You're worried that I might overshadow you, that I might outshine you in the very world you're trying to conquer. Olivia laughed, the sound tinged with both humor and disdain. Mark, you could never make me insecure. Your little games, your attempts at manipulation, they're child's play to me. You think you're a big fish in this pond, but you're barely making a ripple. I've dealt with far greater challenges than you could ever pose. You're a sponsor, sure, but that's all you'll ever be. A footnote in the grand scheme of things. Your presence here doesn't make me insecure. It barely registers on my radar. So keep playing your games, Mark. Keep thinking you're making waves. In the end, you're just splashing in the shallow end while I swim in the deep. Mark leaned in, his voice laced with conviction. You're trying to put on a strong front, Olivia, but it's clear you're threatened by me and the Rose family. Our company is becoming real competition for the Park Company. You're scared, he continued, because you know that we have the potential to blow the Park Company out of the market. You've had your little run, but it's about to come to an end. Olivia raised an eyebrow, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Threatened? By a smaller company that hasn't even opened its doors yet? That's hardly plausible unless, of course, you know something that you haven't announced publicly yet? Mark hesitated, his mind racing. She's trying to trap me, he thought. Olivia is fishing for information, trying to unsettle me, but I won't fall for it. At that moment, Olivia discreetly signaled Violet. Violet, catching Olivia's subtle cue, quickly stepped into the conversation. Maybe Mark has just studied the market thoroughly, Violet interjected, coming to Mark's defense. When his company is ready to announce, they might just shake up the market with their innovation. It's not unheard of for a new player to make a significant impact. Mark nodded, gratefully going along with Violet's explanation. That's a good save, he thought, relieved. Meanwhile, Olivia's mind was working at full speed. I have him right where I want him, she thought. He's on the defensive, and now it's time to push him further and make him reveal more. Olivia turned to Violet, feigning anger in her voice. Violet, you're speaking out of turn. This is a matter between Mark and me. Her expression and tone were convincingly annoyed, but internally, Olivia was calculating her next moves, ready to exploit the situation to her advantage. The game was on, and she was determined to lead Mark right into the trap she was carefully setting. Olivia's tone was sharp as she turned to Violet. Violet, remember I asked you to wait outside? Mark quickly jumped to Violet's defense. Actually, I let Violet into the banquet. Olivia raised an eyebrow. How curious, Mark, that you'd let Violet in when you were the one who insisted on the 2 guests per invite rule. Mark's irritation began to show, his composure slipping. Why are you asking so many questions, Olivia? Why the sudden interest in nitpicking every little detail? Jeff, sensing an opportunity, joined Olivia's line of attack. It does seem odd, Mark. You keep Violet out of the party initially, only to personally bring her in later. What's the real reason behind this? It's just fishy, very, very fishy. Jeff added his words, echoing the growing murmurs in the room. Around them, the whispers of the guests grew louder, each voicing their suspicions. Something's not right with Mark. Why the sudden change of heart about Violet? It's like he's hiding something. Mark's actions are really questionable. Each comment added to the mounting scrutiny, the guests' eyes flicking between Mark, Olivia, and Jeff as they tried to piece together the unfolding drama. Mark, feeling concerned, attempted to justify his actions. That's how we do things in Chicago. Olivia was quick to counter. Well, Mark, last I checked, we're in New York, not Chicago. Things work differently here. Shady Chicago rules aren't going to fly in the Big Apple. Just then, a very drunk Jake Nevins stumbled into the conversation, going to Mark's defense. His speech was slurred, his movements unsteadied as he continued to drink. Mark is the most trustworthy person I know, Jake declared, his words muddled. And Olivia, he continued, pointing a wavering finger at her. You're the shady one. Shady, Miss Shady Pants. He took another sip of his drink, trying to gather his thoughts, but his words were becoming increasingly incoherent. Mark looked visibly embarrassed by Jake's drunken defense. He glanced around nervously, aware of the attention they were attracting. Jake, oblivious to Mark's discomfort, slurred on. "Mark is such a good dude that he got me this." But before Jake could reveal more, Mark quickly intervened. "That's enough, Jake." He turned to Olivia, his voice firm. "You're making something out of nothing just to cause a stir. Everything you're saying is meaningless and baseless. I created a guest policy. Sure, but clearly it wasn't properly understood. Things like that happen all the time." As Mark's words spread through the crowd, guests began whispering among themselves. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Olivia was only allowed to bring one person, right? Perhaps we're reading too much into it. It could just be a typical banquet politics, nothing more. Olivia seized the moment, her voice ringing clear and confident. "It's interesting that you brought up that you created this guest policy, Mark. I was the only person stopped for having 2 guests, yet the Coopers waltzed in here as a party of 5. Doesn't that seem a bit inconsistent to you?" She paused, allowing her words to resonate with the gathered crowd. Mark faltered, his words tangling as he tried to formulate a response. "Well, the Coopers, you see, it's different because—" Olivia cut him off, pressing her point. "And on top of that, Mark, if you aren't hosting this party as you claimed, then why do you get to make any decisions about the guest policy in the first place? It doesn't add up, does it?" Mark struggled to respond, his composure cracking under Olivia's pointed questioning. The guests watched intently, their curiosity and suspicion growing. Why did Mark get to decide on the guest policy if he's just a sponsor? It does seem odd. What kind of sponsor has that kind of authority? Is he really just a sponsor? He seems to have a lot of control here. Something's not right. Why would a mere sponsor enforce guest limits? Mark's role in this is more than what it appears. No sponsor gets that involved. Mark opened his mouth to speak, but no words came to him. He was at a complete loss for what to say to justify him being in charge of the rules. Olivia had him caught, and Mark knew he did not have a good answer. Other guests in the crowd looked at each other in confusion as well. Everyone was speechless, and there was no way to break the awkward tension. The only one sure of anything at that moment was Olivia. She could hear the wheels turning in everyone's heads, but she decided to quell any lingering uncertainty. I'll explain it again for anyone still confused. The banquet tonight is put on by the New York City Chamber of Commerce. Not only should Mark not be the host of this banquet, but we all know that the Rose Company's official opening isn't until tomorrow, which means he's not a member of the New York City Chamber of Commerce yet. He shouldn't be at this event at all, even as a guest. Who is he to enforce, much less even set the rules? Everyone looked at Mark with confused frowns and scowls of disapproval. Every other member of the New York City Chamber of Commerce in attendance was very familiar with the traditional way things were done, and they did not look kindly on Mark's overstepping. It was even a little embarrassing that no one had realized or called out this discrepancy sooner. Everyone could feel the tide in the room turning against Mark as they processed Olivia's words. "President Johnson," Jake sourly interrupted the stunned silence. "The Rose Company owns this hotel we're all standing in right now. It was kind of Mark to hold this event at his luxury venue. Of course, the staff is going to take direction from Mark DeLillo since he is their employer, not the Chamber of Commerce. Regardless of his membership in the New York City Chamber of Commerce, the hotel staff are going to follow their boss's rules. It's not some big deal overstep that you're implying. It's just common sense and a simple misunderstanding." "I'm not the one making a big deal out of anything. Mark is the one who came over and asked me what I thought about it," Olivia calmly answered Jake. "If he only wanted compliments and flattery, he shouldn't have come to me. In fact, Jake, it sounds like you're the one he should have gone to if he wanted a yes man." Jake's smug, confident face faltered at Olivia's words. He opened his mouth to argue, but Olivia continued speaking. "Since Mark came to me, I thought it best to give my honest opinion. I didn't think it would hit a nerve like this, but that was my mistake. By the way, if Mark is that easily... Mark opened his mouth to speak, but no words came to him. He was at a complete loss for what to say to justify him being in charge of the rules. Olivia had him caught, and Mark knew he did not have a good answer. Other guests in the crowd looked at each other in confusion as well. Everyone was speechless, and there was no way to break the awkward tension. The only one sure of anything at that moment was Olivia. She could hear the wheels turning in everyone's heads, but she decided to quell any lingering uncertainty. I'll explain it again for anyone still confused. The banquet tonight is put on by the New York City Chamber of Commerce. Not only should Mark not be the host of this banquet, but we all know that the Rose Company's official opening isn't until tomorrow, which means he's not a member of the New York City Chamber of Commerce yet. He shouldn't be at this event at all, even as a guest. Who is he to enforce, much less even set the rules? Everyone looked at Mark with confused frowns and scowls of disapproval. Every other member of the New York City Chamber of Commerce in attendance was very familiar with the traditional way things were done, and they did not look kindly on Mark's overstepping. It was even a little embarrassing that no one had realized or called out this discrepancy sooner. Everyone could feel the tide in the room turning against Mark as they processed Olivia's words. President Johnson. Jake sourly interrupted the stunned silence. The Rose Company owns this hotel we're all standing in right now. It was kind of Mark to hold this event at his luxury venue. Of course, the staff is going to take direction from Mark DeLillo since he is their employer, not the Chamber of Commerce. Regardless of his membership in the New York City Chamber of Commerce, the hotel staff are going to follow their boss's rules. It's not some big deal overstep that you're implying. It's just common sense and a simple misunderstanding. I'm not the one making a big deal out of anything. Mark is the one who came over and asked me what I thought about it. Olivia calmly answered Jake. If he only wanted compliments and flattery, he shouldn't have come to me. In fact, Jake, it sounds like you're the one he should have gone to if he wanted a yes man. Jake's smug, confident face faltered at Olivia's words. He opened his mouth to argue, but Olivia continued speaking. Since Mark came to me, I thought it best to give my honest opinion. I didn't think it would hit a nerve like this, but that was my mistake. By the way, if Mark is that easily upset, maybe he's not cut out for the New York City business world. President Johnson, Mark growled, his fists clenched at his sides. He gritted his teeth to contain his rage at Olivia. I apologize for my reaction. It was an immature response to your legitimate criticism. You're right about that. Mark knew there was no point in arguing. If anything, it would just make Olivia look more and more like she had the upper hand, and that was the last thing he needed. Besides, once the Rose Company opens tomorrow, Olivia will regret how she treated me. Mark seethed in his mind. The tables will be completely turned. I just need to be patient and lose this battle so I can win the war. Jake snorted in disappointment at Mark's apology. Mark DeLillo is really just a cowardly pushover after all. Jake thought irritably. How can he actually concede to Olivia? He must be afraid of her, just like everyone else in this town. Well, I'm not afraid of her. She's not the only one with power and influence. She should be begging me for approval, not the other way around. Jake, whatever it is you're thinking, just forget it right now. Jared urged his older brother. He knew his brother better than anyone, and it was obvious to him that Jake was plotting something. And whatever it was would undoubtedly be a huge mistake if he didn't stop him. Mark is clearly not to be trusted, Jared thought. If Jake is all in on Mark, I have to speak up now before it's too late. But how am I ever going to get Jake to listen to me and heed my warnings? He doesn't even listen to me when he's sober. Why would he listen now when he's all sloppy like this? I'm just the irrelevant younger brother he wishes he could get rid of. President DeLillo, there's nothing to really apologize for. Jake smirked. Of course, you don't know all the technicalities of this organization. That's their job. How are you supposed to know all of this when you're so new to the city? Don't listen to people who try to blame you for this. You know what they say? Truly strong, secure people have no need to push others down. Olivia knows she's nothing without her father's money and guidance. That's the only way she's climbed to the top, so she's targeting you to compensate. Jake, what are you talking about? Olivia rolled her eyes. You know exactly what I mean. Jake jutted out his chin smugly. He glared at Olivia with obvious disdain. Interesting, a male voice said from the entrance of the banquet hall. Everyone turned in the direction of the voice to see who it was. Chris Jones? Someone in the crowd gasped. What is he doing here? Chris? Olivia asked in surprise. She had not been expecting to see him either. Am I too late? Chris asked playfully as he walked in to join Olivia. He casually wrapped his arm around her waist and greeted her with a light kiss hello. Not at all, Olivia smiled and answered. Did I hear you correctly, Jake? Chris asked with an amused smile. You're suggesting Olivia's only where she is because of her father? That is really rich coming from you. If you're going to bring up old sayings, I'd maybe brush up on the ones about glass houses and pots calling the kettle black. Jake suddenly looked very sober. I was, just joking, Jake stammered. Just joking? Chris snorted. It didn't sound like a joke to me. I never would have said anything about it if I knew you were here. Jake explained, his voice getting high. It doesn't matter if I'm around or not. Olivia's the one you don't want to offend right now. Chris warned. Chris, my brother barely knows what he's saying right now. Jared tried to bail his brother out of this uncomfortable situation. As much as I hate helping you, Jake, you're representing the whole Nevin family right now, Jared thought, and making a fool of yourself is only going to be bad for all of us. Is that so? So you're saying that Jake doesn't really mean what he's saying? Chris asked skeptically. Jared had no answer for that. Chris turned back to Jake. For the record, Olivia has so much more integrity than Mark ever will. Everyone here, including you, knows Olivia is perfectly capable of defending herself and she doesn't need my help. But just so you know, any insult toward her is also an insult to me. And I'm not very forgiving of anyone who insults me. You'll have to deal with both of us, understand? Jake clenched his fists in anger. I am the new president of the New York City Chamber of Commerce. I'm supposed to be respected, not humiliated in front of this entire crowd. Jake knew he didn't stand a chance against Chris, and there was no way he could win, so he simply answered a terse yes through his gritted teeth. Chris nodded, satisfied. He held out his arm for Olivia, and she accepted. They walked out of the banquet hall together, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. Everyone understood Chris's declaration of support. Whoever stood against Olivia would also have to face the Jones family, since they were now clearly on her side. Chris had practically dared anyone to cross Olivia and start a fight with him. No one would take that dare, of course. The whole crowd watched them leave in silence. Mark watched Olivia and Chris leave the banquet hall seething. Olivia needs big, tough men to protect her. He scoffed to himself. She's nothing without his support. A realization dawned on Mark then. I need backup. I need to call the mysterious man as soon as possible. If Chris is really getting involved, then that's trouble for me. He could ruin everything. I need help. I have to win. I've put everything on the line. I have to beat the park company or I'll lose everything. They'll know what I need to do in order to win.